Planning on visiting the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone on your Yellowstone National Park trip, we're gonna go over everything you need to know. Hey there, I'm Alex from Alex on the Map, and I grew up in Montana, so I've spent quite a bit of time in Yellowstone. I remember as a kid going with my dad to the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, and although Yellowstone wasn't my favorite national park, I was still really impressed by the Grand Canyon. And I'm still super impressed by the Grand Canyon. I love going to it every time we go to Yellowstone. However, it can be a little bit confusing navigating the different rims and knowing where you need to go for certain viewpoints, and you want to make sure that you can fit it in along with your greater Yellowstone trip. We'll go over all that in this guide, but quick tip before we get started. If you love waterfalls, then you're going to want to check out the small crystal falls right near the Grand Canyon. It's often overlooked by most visitors to the park, but it's definitely worth stopping and seeing if you are a waterfall chaser. Alright, let's talk a little bit about how to navigate the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone and what you need to know in order to get around. There are two rims to the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. There's the North Rim and the South Rim. Knowing where to turn and get to when you are looking for certain viewpoints can be a little bit of a challenge. You can enter both the North and the South Rim from Grand Loop Road, which is the main road within the park. There's a bunch of signs that will let you know when to turn, but even still, I found myself confused even after visiting multiple times. The North Rim is a one-way road, so keeping that in mind that if you are driving it, you can't back up and go to certain viewpoints from there. You will have to park and walk. We've had to do that a number of times where we pulled over, found out that the viewpoint we wanted to see was behind us, and walked back there. The South Rim is a lot more straightforward. You drive to the viewpoints. There's less to see. It just is a little bit easier. Let's talk a little bit more about the North Rim and what you're going to see and which hikes are available to you. The North Rim offers some of the most dramatic landscapes, especially when it comes to the lower falls of the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. Here are some of the stops you're going to see along the North Rim. One is the brink of the lower falls. This is a really short but steep hike that will take you right to where the lower falls crashes over the side and goes on along the river. It's 600 feet down, so it's 600 feet back up again when you are headed back to your car. However, it's a really cool spot to see this waterfall and see the drop. It's about 308 feet, so it's pretty dramatic. Just keep in mind that you're going to want a good pair of shoes, and you're going to want to be physically prepared for it because it can be a little bit strenuous when you're headed back up to your car. A little bit further down, you're going to find Lookout Point, which is one of my favorite viewpoints in the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. You get just that heads-on view of the lower falls, and it's not quite as busy as some of the viewpoints you'll find on the South Rim of Artist Point, and we'll get to that in a bit. It's just a super short walk from the parking area, making it a lot less strenuous than the brink of the lower falls. Plus, you get to see the falls from this point rather than being on the falls. Another option for you is Red Rock Point. This is just another viewpoint a little farther down from Lookout Point. What's cool about this spot is that you can see the contrast between red rocks and yellow rocks, which makes for just like a very vibrant photo. This trail can be a little bit slick, so again, making sure you have good shoes with good traction can make a huge difference. Grand View is another beautiful spot that I highly recommend you check out. It offers probably the most sweeping views of the canyon, and it's a great spot to see the Yellowstone River winding through. Personally, this is also where I think you can see those yellow rocks the best that give the canyon their name. It's also not nearly as busy as a lot of the viewpoints, which makes it kind of nice to have a peaceful moment with this amazing, incredible scenery. Another good spot farther down is Inspiration Point. You can't see the falls from here, but this is another great spot to see that colorful rock, and you're not going to likely find a ton of other people there, so you might be able to get some better photos as well. Alright, here are some hiking trails with some options for you if you would like to hike on the North Rim. I will preface this by saying if you only have one day in Yellowstone, then packing this in might be a little bit much. But if you have multiple days and you're planning on spending an entire day exploring the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, then it might be worth it to check these out. The first one is the North Rim Trail. This is 3.8 miles one way, and since you're coming back the way you came, it's actually more like 7.6 miles. I would say this is pretty moderate of a hike. It's not incredibly difficult, but it will take some time. Another hike you can do is the 7-mile Hole Trail and Cascade Overlook. This hike is hard and it is 10 miles, so it will be your entire day if you choose to do so. Honestly, I think there's a lot of great hikes in Yellowstone that aren't this. This wouldn't be the one I would choose if you're visiting. But if you have plenty of time and you're really just enjoying being in the canyon, then this might be a good one for you. Alright, let's chat a little bit about the south rim of the canyon. I would say the south rim overall is typically a little less packed except for Artist Point. We're going to talk a little bit about that as a stop later on, but just know that if you are planning on visiting this spot, it's going to be very busy. Here are some stops you can find along the south rim. Like you have the brink of the lower falls in the north rim, you have the brink of the upper falls in the south rim. This is a very short but steep hike for you with a viewing platform where you can see again those waterfalls crashing down. It's not as tall as the lower falls, it's 109 feet, but it's still pretty impressive. Again, this platform also usually isn't as busy as the other brink of the falls platform, so this might be a better option for you if you're really trying to avoid those crowds. Canyon Overlook is another really quick, easy stop to stop by. This spot is really known for its lighting, so if you're a photographer during golden hour, you might want to stop here. Sunset Point is a point that I think is massively underrated, especially when everyone heads to the nearby Artist Point. Again, this is a great spot for photographers because the lighting during sunset is just magical. You can also see the platform for the brink of the lower falls from there, from across the way. And finally, the main attraction, Artist Point. This is the most photographed view in Yellowstone National Park by far. This has been a famous spot for, you have guessed it, artists to come and paint this really beautiful natural wonder. I love Artist Point, even though it's always busy with a ton of crowds. I just think the photos you get from there are incredibly pretty, and it is just a perfect composition from this spot. If you are a photographer and you want that picture, I do recommend getting there really early in the morning to not only get the sunrise and golden hour, but also to avoid the crowds. There are several more hiking trails available on the south rim than the north, and I'm going to give you a list. The south rim trail is a little bit easier than its counterpoint at 1.8 miles one way. It is a moderate hike. Again, I wouldn't say it's the easiest, but it's definitely a great option if you want views of the canyon and you don't want too many people around you. Another trail I would recommend, but it is closed indefinitely, is Uncle Tom's Trail. I got to do this trail a few years back when it was still open, and it is incredible. You actually get to walk down to the falls and see them right there. It really is amazing. It is a lot of steps and it is hard and it is difficult to maintain, which is why the park has kept it closed. However, if it does ever open up one day, make sure to get on it. You can also hike from Artist Point to Sublime Point. This is 2.5 miles and moderate. Finally, if you kind of want to get out of the canyon, you can do the Clear Lake and Ribbon Lake Loop. It's 3.9 miles and also moderate. It gives you a chance to see two beautiful lakes in Yellowstone that are a bit removed from the rest of the canyon. Are you struggling on planning your national park trip? Let's face it, between accommodations, figuring out the reservation system, and a lot more, it's just overwhelming planning your national park trip sometimes. This can cost you a lot of time and money just figuring out your itinerary. If you're looking for some help planning your trip, I offer a custom national park itinerary service that walks you through day by day what you need to know before you go. This itinerary will save you a lot of time and money and allows you to get to the park and actually enjoy your trip instead of worrying about all the details. I plan hundreds of national park trips for clients, which has helped them enjoy their whole experience a lot more. So what does one of these custom itineraries include? You can expect reservation information if needed, suggestions on where to stay, what to eat, and what to do, and tips and recommendations for your specific park. You'll love the itinerary I plan for you, or you get your money back. Here are some testimonials from some of my clients. Alex was very responsive to my request for assistance in planning our upcoming trip to Glacier National Park. We were unfamiliar with the park, and it was helpful to get specific recommendations of where to stay, eat, and what to do while we're out there to make the most of our vacation from Barbara. Alex was more than prompt in responding to my request for an itinerary. Her selections fit perfectly with the criteria I requested. She's been great about following up and making sure that our needs are met. From Samantha. If you're interested in this, I offer a 15 15-minute consultation call for free where you can tell me about your concerns for your national park trip, and I can give you more information on how I can help you. You can find that out in the description below and book your call there. Alright, here are some tips I have for visiting the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. First of all, wear good shoes. Flip-flops are not going to cut it. It can be pretty slippery on some of these viewpoints from the spray of the waterfalls, and having sturdy shoes is just a must, especially since you will be going up and down on some pretty steep inclines. Another tip I have is I would definitely recommend visiting in the morning if you can. The park tends to get busy in the afternoon, and if you want to get some of those viewpoints without the crowds, then morning is the best time to do so. Also, if you're visiting Yellowstone in the summer, it can be very hot in the canyon in the afternoon, so by going in the morning, you're avoiding that heat as well. This tip is my personal opinion, but I don't think you have to stop at every single stop. To be honest, I would say a lot of the stops on the North Rim look pretty similar to one another. I would pick 2 or 3 that I've mentioned above on the North Rim so you have time to explore the other areas of the park. If you want a little more information on those stops, I have a whole blog post about this topic that I will link to in the description below. This is another personal opinion. I would drive this instead of hiking it. And although I've given you the options for hiking, I really do think that you will see more and experience more by actually driving the drive instead. You will end up using most of your day to explore the trails, and there are so many great hikes in Yellowstone that although these are amazing, you're gonna get the same view as if you are driving. Alright, here are some common FAQs I get about visiting the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. How do I get to the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone? Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone is located pretty much right in the center of Yellowstone National Park. This makes it pretty accessible no matter where you're coming from. Once you are headed in that direction, you're going to see a sign for Canyon Village, which is an indication that you are almost there. This spot has lodging and amenities as well, so if you're hungry, there are some restaurants available. And once you follow these signs, they're going to lead you to the entrance for both rims. Of course, downloading Google Maps beforehand and plugging it in, it also works as well. How deep is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone? The canyon has various depth points from around 800 to 1200 feet, so that's pretty deep. How long is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone? The entire Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone is about 20 miles, so a lot less than the actual Grand Canyon, but still pretty impressive. Are there any amenities at the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone? Yes, as mentioned earlier, if you go to Canyon Village, you're going to find a number of different restaurants, even places to stay if you would like to stay within the park, and gift shops and all that stuff. It is located on the North Rim. What are the can't miss things to do at the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone? This is my personal favorite, but I really do think you shouldn't miss Artist Point, and you can skip all the rest if you need to. My second choice would be the brink of the lower falls on the North Rim. And finally, if Uncle Tom's Trail is open, go for that one. How far away is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone from Old Faithful? Driving from Old Faithful with no traffic and no wildlife holding you up, it takes about an hour and 12 minutes. Keep in mind that if there are a ton of visitors, it probably will take longer. How much time does it take to visit the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone? If you are booking it through and you are stopping at 1 or 2 viewpoints or doing 1 or 2 trails, I would budget about 3 hours total. However, if you're stopping at every spot and you plan on taking on several hiking trails, it can take up your entire day. I hope this has helped you plan your trip to the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comments. And if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button and the bell notification before you leave, you'll get more content on national parks and tips to help you plan your trip of a lifetime.